spend just a few minutes here in this area and then move along to some other things that Dwayne will want to get into. And your host for today is Dwayne Mann from Woodbine, who's involved in growing himself and is also a wholesale businessman in the orchard supply and chemical supply business, covering a wide area. He has a broad acquaintance of a lot of people involved in different segments of the industry and in agriculture, and as many of you do as well. But thank you for having us, Dwayne. And the coffee and the donuts are on him. Strawberry. If you haven't had a strawberry, you should try that. They're just picked freshly from the garden that you got there. I hope you all have a copy of the agenda. It's somewhat of a guideline of what we're going to try and do today, and in the time frame we hope to do it. We will need to be a little flexible because of the miles we're traveling, but bear with us if you will, and help us along the way to move it around if we need to. Those who are here out of town, we're most pleased, of course, to have you come to Woodbine or to Harrison County and to view what we think is an opportunity, and to also consider some of the problem we have in agriculture in this particular area. We are somewhat stressed, as we all, I think, can recognize. But we're not whipped, and we have lots of ambitious ideas, and much of it's coming from Dwayne Mann's experience and expertise. So we'll lean on him heavily today, as we will some of you. On the agenda down toward the bottom, we have listed after the lunch session, a summary and information exchange. We hope that many of us can get some input to what might happen, what should happen, to counter some of the forces that we look at today in a bad economy perhaps, and in one thing, exporting 83% or more of our young graduates to some other state. Why do we do that? Maybe we can change some of that starting today by creating jobs. And the buzzword among Harrison County Improvement Association, Roseanna's on our board as I am, our key word is jobs. We just got to have some, somehow, some way. So Gary Googie is here, our extension director from Logan. Dwayne has some things he wants to show us and tell us about, so we'll begin.
We really had an excellent turnout. We have a real broad base here. Something about it. I think the group that's here today speaks well for that. I also think it's an excellent opportunity, because I think it's a rare situation that we've got the different interests here and the different agencies represented. So we all got a chance to look at each other and match faces with names and so forth with as far as expertise is concerned. As you know, this diversification concept has been picking up momentum as we go along, and we have here in Harrison County one of the best prospects for diversification, because not only because we have need, but we have resources in our topography and in our locality, particularly for fruit, also for vegetables, and we have also the larger amount of fruit growers within this county. And the situation has been that we have marketed most of our fruit in a retail sense to the local population. Probably 60-65% of our apples, for example, are marketed retail. The rest of them go to wholesale markets, to wherever the guys can peddle them, 50 bushel or 100 bushel at a time, or whatever. And so our efforts have been through our own retail markets, or pick your own in our own orchards, and that has been the largest portion of our fruit market. Now, in the wholesale sense, the fruit growers would be the first to admit that this is really a challenge to ever get into that market, because we're going to have some avenues before we increase production, for example, because it's difficult at this point even to market those 35% in that wholesale market. So if we're going to change Iowa in terms of fruits and vegetables and get into diversification, we're going to have the efforts and the expertise of everybody to develop markets and market channels to get the job done. And that's going to be the horse before the cart, because we can produce the stuff. I'm convinced of that, and I think Dr. Beard and Dr. Moto, Hugh and so forth from the university will probably confirm that later on today, that we can produce it, and we're learning more and more about techniques in vegetables and fruits to be a competitive entity nationwide. We import over 90% of the fruits and vegetables that we consume within the state of Iowa. And that makes you a little sick, right in the pit of your stomach when you stop to think about it. The #1 agriculture in the state, you know, in terms of history, not necessarily by crop, in terms of history, and here we need to do something about it. And so we're going to get into more and more of this later on today, but I think what I'd like to do now, because until we come back from our luncheon and go into our program this afternoon, we're going to be basically looking at it, taking some visual pictures in our minds of what we're here for. We're here in Harrison County to open a door, to give you a visual perspective of the present fruit growers that are here, some of the things that are going on and have been going on here for years. So you get a chance to look at our orchards, look at some of the growers, talk to them, and visit with them about their problems. Now, the basic emphasis will be fruit and apples, but for about 10 minutes. It hasn't really been that good. But this is clear plastic. And under the hole there made by laser beam, every 12 inches there's a hole. And that'll just drip out water evenly, consistently all the way along.
To start off with, my dad set this orchard, the original orchard, 60-some years ago, which took from here to the top of the hill, and in 38 we set 2 acres down here and Ames come out with a demonstration orchard. All right, it was fine and dandy. We lost half of it to the Army State Freeze in 41. We set it back, doing pretty good. So in 1980, we got the hailstorm and cleaned it. I think there was, all the young trees were dead and 2/3 of the older ones, so we had to push it out and start over. So these trees were set in 81. We went right back up here at the old part, which on this ground we can do. We can take trees out and set right back and get along fine. They're set 15 feet apart in a row, and the row 25 feet apart, because my tractor is a little bit bigger, so I went a little wider row. We had a dry spring when we set them in 81. We had to water them. The first half was set earlier, got 3 inches of rain. By the time we got this one set, it got dry, but we got them in all right. This year we had a few apples we were going to sell, but Saturday evening they decided they were going to hail us out and put some marks on for juice, so we're back in the juice business. And that's about basically the story without going in a lot of detail.
You know, develop a tree that is productive. Well, any ideas. One, develop a tree that is productive and is going to produce not only a lot of fruit, but maintain good quality of fruit. Okay? And for quality, we need sunlight. And so the central leader system was developed, and it sort of meets these goals under our current orchard practices. Okay, and basically what we're trying to do with the tree, become an effective economic unit, particularly with our current system. This may be the 6th.
It's related, we hopefully maybe to a Jonathan. I don't know what the success is going to be. We put a few in to look at them. And yeah, you just right down on that area, turn around, and just right back out. Well, just tell them about your operation. Basically, how many acres and what you've been doing.
We got about 60 acres of apples now. Probably about 30 standard trees, which is the old type trees like them, and then about 30 acres of semi-doors, which are behind the shed here. And our oldest, we did have, this was our oldest orchard, planted in 42. Now, like I say, we took it out and replanted it back 4 years ago. These are 4-year-old trees up here. Hi, Carlos, I didn't know you did. And our operation probably 10, 15 years ago was probably 80% wholesale and 20% retail. Due to not having the money to expand my facilities, to make, go into the big modern package heads and stuff like that, we kind of reverted back, we went the other way. When I started planting semi-door trees, we went to pick your own. So we're fairly heavy pick your own now. And on the heavy year, like it will be this year, if nothing happens, we don't get a winged hail, we'll have a lot of, we'll be heavy wholesale apples again this year. And, but
What percentage do you wholesale, what percentage do you retail?
right now, I'm probably about 60-40, 60 retail, 40% wholesale. On a big year, short year, well, there's Paul. Didn't we hit me? Boy, I didn't know I was saying.
We got it.
And
Everybody's here.
so you didn't introduce them to us. See, we don't know.
Well, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that.
I got a sheet, but I'm trying to get it to you, excuse me for not getting it.
And
name on the end, but he also has Mondayman on the ear. Mondayman means something here in the Midwest in terms of apples. It means a lot.
you say you're from Monday, and I don't care if you're 200 miles away, or they'll say, oh, that's right.
He's got a, like Russ said, he's got a flag like that. He's something since I've been here. Yeah. He's collected a few antiques.
Omaha, but we're part of Iowa. We really need your help out here, more than we've had in the past. And I think we've tried to recently, as Dwayne has and others visit Des Moines, to talk with you and your associates more directly about what we need to do out here. So as we go on through this afternoon luncheon area in response and information exchange, we hope you'll share with us ideas you see, things you want us to consider, and give us a bit of direction and help us get to the place where we keep the motor running if we in fact have it started today. And where does the fuel come from? How do we do all this? Many elements will be included in that. Our host, Dwayne Mann, is going to lead a little discussion, and we'll call upon some of you, and we ask you to freely express yourselves to help us out. Cheryl Berry, our coordinator from the Harrison County Improvement Association Board, is here, and we'll jot down a few things. Gordon Watson, whether we lost him or not, is on our board and came today. Roseanne King was on our board, had to leave for another meeting in Des Moines, so she's gone. With us since this morning is Dr. Wayne Cobberdahl from Iowa State Extension Service and the area, let's see if I have this right. He's been a community resource development specialist for a long time and helped many of us in community planning and county work in this area of the state. He's now the administrator of the area extension office and is serving as the director, I believe, at this time. Wayne, it's good to have you join us.
Thank you.
Also with us, another man, and I'll ask Dwayne to introduce him, is Dan Cooper. And perhaps you can tell us, as you know him, and something about what he's doing. I hope you now play it together and move it around and keep it busy the rest of the afternoon. We're going to try and break up about, what, 3:30 or so?
Yeah.
Maybe a little later if you like. So we'll stay as long as you want to stay.
Right after the baptism. Calling for conclusions, we're not going to go quite that far and ask you to come forward and be baptized. We're going to try to see if we can't pick your minds a little bit and get some ideas that we can extend in the future and not walk away from here today with that empty feeling of saying, well, boy, I just wonder what's going to happen now. We need the resources of the people in this room. We need the expertise of the growers, the councils. We need the expertise of the people that help us if we're going to finance something. We need the expertise of trying to get any government agencies that can help us. We need the guidance of the university people and the people in marketing to pool with all of us to see what we can do to solve some of the things that we need to do in agriculture to make it healthier and not. We've got, in terms of fruit, several things to consider. We mentioned this morning that basically the fruit growers now have come around to more to the retail from the wholesale because of the complications and the costs involved in getting their own their packing facilities and facilities they need to process these apples. And this has come out of this sheer necessity and also a little bit of the opportunity to increase interest in pick your own. We want to remember that we're only producing less than 10% of the apples that we consume within the state. And I'm sure Nebraska is in the same situation, and Minnesota, and probably not Missouri, but here in the Midwest, we're importing most of our fruits and vegetables, up to 90% in Iowa of what we consume. So we've got a long ways to go. Now, how do we market apples in Iowa? Besides pick your own and the retail market, and we'll continue to see increases wherever there's population centers in that area. I don't think we even have to be concerned about the fact that there's quite a bit of interest in that. And where you've got community centers and not a lot of competition, you're going to see more and more small orchards designed for retail markets and pick your own trade. But again, we can only reach a certain percentage of the market that way. So if we look at what it's going to cost to get into the wholesale market, our attention really has not been turned toward that for a long, long time. These fellows over here can tell you of several attempts when they've gotten together on their own in years past and tried to get together, talk through the possibility of a centralized marketing group. I don't see anything in the future, close in the future, where we're going to have the influx of large commercial operations starting outside of a cooperative type of effort. I don't think you'll see people from Washington or Michigan or Carolinas or Colorado decide that Iowa is going to be the prime target for wholesale apples. I don't see that at all. They have no reason. They can grow apples where they are. They can do it where they are. I think our emphasis is going to be in regions within the state of Iowa where you've got cooperative effort of relatively a larger number of smaller growers. I'm talking about 20, 30, maybe 40 acres. And for some of these guys who already have the expertise, an opportunity to expand and go beyond that. But if we're going to have a centralized marketing facility and make inroads into the market, we're going to have to do that on a regional basis. We're going to have to utilize the expertise in an area. Certainly going to have to utilize that centralized packaging facility. It's going to have to be something that starts out in a modest sense with a vision, so that we can possibly move percentage, this 30% of these wholesale apples that we've got now, through a facility, not only from Harrison County, but from surrounding counties and possibly out of Nebraska. Move those apples within the next immediate future. You know, we're talking about next year or two or whatever. Moving those apples into the marketplace. Then, as we do that, we've got the existing growers who can quickly expand if they want to and move towards that. And how quick can you be in the fruit business? Plant trees, wait 5 years to get your first crop, and that is not a significant crop in terms of economics. You're going to be 7, 8, 9 years before you're into production. But once you're into production, then you've got a viable industry. If you're working together, you can utilize these marketing facilities. So this is basically my concept, that if we do anything at all, it's going to take concerted effort. It's going to take commitment on the part of the growers to seek out to their own satisfaction that this is something that they're interested in and that they want to support and be involved. Plus, we need to lean on them for guidance. We've got to utilize what we've got. We've got to find a market for the apples right now that we have before we start increasing production. I'm not going to go much longer. I'm going to ask Dan if you come up and relate to us a little bit. Dan is our state horticulturist. He's the secretary of the Iowa Fruit Growers and Vegetable Growers Association. And then I can just go on and on as far as the secretary is concerned, but I'm going to let you tell us what he does, what he's been involved in. He's the closest one here to all the things that's happening in terms of diversification throughout the state of Iowa. Dan?
I don't know whether I'm any closer than several of these other people. In fact, some of these people know a lot of things that I probably don't know about. Mark knows more about some of the economics of the market than actually I do. But basically, to give you a little bit of background, 3 years ago, when we were having budget hearings, Mr. Lounsbury asked for $9,000 to look at fruits and vegetables as an alternative to row crops. At that time, in the budget hearing to the governor, there happened to be a guy by the name of Yetson from the Des Moines Register and Tribune. And after presenting a $5.5 million budget, the headlines on the business page the next day said, Secretary of Agriculture pushes vegetables. And the legislature turned us down on that $9,000, but the governor set up a task force on agricultural diversification that year. And what that task force said, basically, in the results, was that there are many things that we might need to look at. But because of our heritage in terms of the number of acres that at one time we produced in horticultural crops, there was over 800,000 acres in the 20s in this state, that it would probably be the easiest industry for us to jump back into without a lot of laborious research that maybe some of the other new crops that we are looking at the university level would just not be feasible for us. So from there, basically, Mr. Lounsbury set off on a task, and we got some USDA grant money. Now, with that grant money, what we were to do is basically try to define the base market potential for horticultural crops in the state, as well as look at some of the terminal market impact, to look at a correlation between slope heights and the types of crops we can grow at what locations across the state. Also to look at a way to integrate future or new production into the existing marketing network that we have in the vegetable industry, food industry, etc. Now, Mark Weimer and Ag Econ have been doing some work looking at comparative advantage studies, I think, as well as looking at some terminal market potential of what we might find in Chicago or Minneapolis. Not that when we are an import state, we need to necessarily rely on an export market like we do in many of our other crops, but the fact that we're close enough to those terminal markets that if we are going to, in fact, produce vegetable crops commercially, we ought to darn well be certain as to what the potential is in those metropolitan areas that we can market to, and whether or not we can carve out a niche in those terminal markets or displace some production from California or whatever it might be. We also have a couple of major problems that we're aware of, and one is field heat. For those of you who don't know, that's the heat that's stored in the vegetable in the field. And if you don't reduce that field heat very rapidly after you pick it, then you don't have any length of storage or no storage life or shelf life in the grocery store. So one of the things that Ag Econ is looking at too is looking at a way to develop an intermediate system of handling that problem of field heat until we have enough growers large enough that can afford some of those hydro cooling systems that are so very expensive, or whatever it takes to get the field heat out. Right now we have just reapplied to USDA for further grant money to look, we have applied for a grant for a feasibility study statewide for marketing, packaging, grading, and storing fruits and vegetables across the state, trying to determine where those facilities should, in fact, if at all, be located, what those facilities might entail in terms of development, and basically from that standpoint. We also have applied for money to look at developing a retail market or a direct market that we feel has a great potential, as well as a wholesale market, and that's basically the farmer market system. Around the country, the farmer markets have become very popular. And one of the things that we have found out, for instance, in Charleston, West Virginia, a city of 58,000, they have a farmer's market who sold $7 million worth of product last year through that tailgate market off the back of pickups. And on Fridays and Saturdays, they have so many people there, they have to have a parking lot attendant to help people park. And yet in Des Moines, Iowa, a town of over 230,000 people, there's not one market that lasts more than 4 hours on any one day. And so we're losing a great potential, I think, in our larger areas by not either developing a full-time farmers market or expanding the farmers market we have now in existence. Like Council Bluffs, I know, has one. It wouldn't be unusual for producers in this area to truck stuff to Council Bluffs and sell it at a farmers market. But that is where the community commitment and the commitment by people at the state government level or whatever has to work together. Now, the grant proposal we have in the USDA right now as far as farmer markets goes will be basically a grant and aid program to local communities who will match the grant amount we set, whatever that might be, whether it be $2,000 or $3,000 or $1,000. And then the community will take that money and basically develop that farmer market in that location or help. Some of the things we're finding out, for instance, as you're aware of, USDA is pulling back from price support systems very quickly. And at the same time, they're trying to shut down their AMS marketing program. And so one of the things I did is I was in Washington not long ago and talked to our legislators, and our senators and congressmen, and asked them to try to push to see that that not happen, because that's exactly where we're getting our funding for these marketing research studies that we're doing. And we happen to have 3 people that sit on that Ag Budget Committee. I also happen to have made good friends with the new Secretary of Agriculture in Massachusetts, and he as well has about 3 people on there. So we're hoping that we will be able to keep that $1 million fund, which really doesn't even show up in Washington budget figures at all, and hopefully expand that or encourage them to expand it. Because if there's anything that I think government can do, it would be help in the area of marketing. And therefore, we hope that those funds will stay available. And we have applied for those grants not knowing whether that fund actually will even exist. But it's basically just an agricultural marketing service grant to local states to develop marketing projects. Other than that, I can't think of anything we're doing exceptionally. We are very much in the promotional area. I don't know how many of you do that. We made a salad last week to promote the fruit and vegetable industry as well as all the other horticultural industries in the state to feed 11,000 people. And it's amazing the kind of attention you get. Last year we made an apple pie that fed 8,200 people. So what that does, it's kind of a media event, a time that we can focus attention. And we doubled our media exposure this year, and that's all we really care about. Because I believe that if you wait until you need to market the crop to start marketing, you're too late. So basically, that's what our responsibility is try to help define the market and see where we can go in terms of expansion. The latest study that we kind of finished up, Camille and Sam Steele did, basically indicates that they, after interviewing of the wholesalers, processors, and institutional buyers of food in the state, that on 15 vegetable items, if we could reduce the imports on those 15 items by 10%, we could create a $60 million industry in the state. And I think that's realistic. And I think there's probably more out there that we could do, but it's going to take time, it's going to take careful planning in order to secure that. Because the one thing that the wholesalers will not buy is poor quality. And if you go in with bugs on your corn or holes in your apples, they'll just kick you out the door because there's somebody in Washington or Oregon or Missouri that'll bring them a product that doesn't have that kind of problem. So I think that's extremely important. That quality control is always going to be extremely important, and also the storage problem in terms of getting the field heat out. I think they're 2 of the biggest problems in the vegetable industry. And even if you go strictly into apples or encourage apple production, I think there's some things you can do with that land in the meantime until those apple trees are large enough to bear. Maybe intercropping or something. But there's a lot of things I think we can do in state government too to enhance our position in terms of diversifying Iowa's agricultural economy, because I don't think we've been very good at making it easy for people to diversify. For instance, they just changed a law that on the forest preserves, it used to be that you could also have a fruit tree preserve, and were not taxed on that land for 10 years. However, they changed that so that if you plant anything like a pumpkin in between those apple trees until the trees get to bearing age, you lose your tax status. And I think for no more acreage than we have, number one, and number two, if we're going to encourage people to do things different, that was probably a little ludicrous of our legislative body to even take up such an infinite amount of money to change. I think too is our attitudes in purchasing. For instance, not picking on the university, but I know they purchase their apples with their banana contract. And the guy that has the banana contract gets some apples and he uses it almost as a lost leader so that he can get that lucrative banana contract. And I think I was told something like 100 crates per week, or 200, something like that they use per week at the university. And yet a local grower probably couldn't compete unless he wanted to get into the banana business as well. So I think those are the kinds of things we're going to have to look at and try to encourage people as they can legitimately do it and still not make it too hard on internal workings, is to encourage public institutions to buy Iowa grown, or at least have the legislature set something up for over a 10-year period maybe, is to give a 5% advantage to anyone who purchased Iowa grown products through public institutions. Because if there's a difference in 3 cents on a crate of apples and they have to buy it, it doesn't make much sense, because in the long run the state loses anyway. But those are the kinds of things I think we have to look at. And I'm not sure those are all correct, but I think, they're food for thought. But that's it.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, appreciate those comments. Dan has been really close to a lot of these things, and since he's been in this, we've had bringing together the Iowa vegetable growers with the fruit growers, and we have a lot larger group, more active group, viable group in the annual fruit and vegetable growers meeting we have in Des Moines. For years and years, I was the only exhibitor. I'm not talking about a lot of years, it hadn't been that long ago, but it wasn't that too many years ago, about 7, 8 years ago, I was the only exhibitor at the Iowa Fruit Grower meeting. How many we had last year?
I think there were over 200. But you mean
The
exhibitors?
exhibitors.
I think there were like 27.
Yeah, something like that, and now the attendance has grown from something like probably 50 to 60 to 200 or 300 or more than that. So we're better structured, that's what I'm trying to say, in terms of the Iowa Fruit Growers and Vegetable Growers Association. Now, I was wondering, we go look around the room here, if I can get, I'd like to get some responses, some ideas from the various people around here. We've got a lot of different agencies. I know we've got people that have got interest in this, not only just from the position they represent, but from there's appealing type of thing to a lot of them. Doug, if you've got anything you'd like to comment about in terms of what you saw today and any questions you got or anything that you'd like to relate to us.
You want me up there?
You bet.
I don't have too much to add as far as my expertise as far as apples goes, because today was really, for me, the beginning. I learned a lot about what goes on and what you're accomplishing. But it does remind me of a speech that I heard recently by Daniel Crum, the president of Maytag. And he mentioned a study that's been done recently for the legislature in regard to agriculture. And one of the things that the study pointed out was that we do need to diversify. But in addition to the diversification that we've already mentioned and talked about today, is that if we can add the value to the product before it leaves the state, whether it be corn and whether it be doing something with that corn to produce a corn sweetener or whatever it might be, we're going to benefit that way. In the case of apples or vegetables, if we can put together operations that can handle cider or handle making apple pies or whatever it might be, it's going to be to our advantage because we'll be able to provide jobs. as far as the people from Harrison County, I feel very good today that we finally put names and telephone numbers with faces, and so you know who the people are around the state who are willing to work with you and do what they can to make sure that you get all the resources that are available from not only the state level and the regional level, but also from the federal level. So I really encourage you to, if you have any questions or if you have some kind of a program that you want to put together and you need resources, you can call any of the people that are in this room and feel like you know who they are already. So since I really don't have much expertise in this particular field, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Go from there.
Okay, I think at this point, as far as being the expertise in fruit growing is concerned, I don't think anybody has to apologize for maybe not knowing anything about that, but we've got lots of people that can handle that. It's like we said before, if we really decide, if we want to call a meeting, call the farmers in, especially these stressed farmers, and say, we're going to we want 100 new fruit growers. You'd have 100 new fruit growers. It wouldn't be very difficult to talk them into it in this particular stage of the game. But however, you'd have 100 mad ones 5 years from now, and you'd really be in trouble. So what we really need is marketing help. We need leadership. And Doug, you can certainly provide that. We need to get the minds going in terms of how can we finance such an operation? How can we draw upon the resources in the community to find a way to make a modest approach now that's got vision. It's going to have vision because we've got a long ways to go to get into this 90% of these fruits and vegetables that we're eating that they aren't producing. So we really have an opportunity. We have the finest soils. We've got everything we need to work with. We've got water. We've got all kinds of things.
One thing I suggest that you locate a situation or somewhere else, whether part of Iowa or part of the central part of the United States, that have had similar situation and where they went together in a cooperative manner to solve that, and then go send a delegation from Harrison County to go visit that spot and find out exactly step 1, 2, 3, what they did to solve their problem. A very practical approach. Maybe Dan can find out from the state where they've done this, and maybe because, as you pointed out many times, there's a need for income in those 5 years, or 6 or 7 years till the income comes in from fruit, combine it with vegetable, because there is a need for quality vegetable. You do have quite a market, you know.
That's a good suggestion.
Combine them and see if someone has done that somewhere, see how they went about it. Now, you have the leadership here. You and Zell Miller, and the farmers here, the Smalls, and everyone else who's been growing apples really have a know-how. Now, how do they put together other places?
And we'd also have the advantage of some of the pitfalls that they've gone through, because like the name you do those, like in southern Illinois and Kansas and so forth. Yeah. And we're standing in, it's an excellent suggestion, but we're standing in a new era. A lot of those things those situations were developed out of some pretty healthy ag economy, economic levels of production, you see. Whereas here, we're under the gun.
Under stress.
You said, yeah, we got a minus situation. And we definitely got a minus situation here in Woodlawn. It's time, and we're all healthy. We've got our minds and our ability to take a minus and turn it into a plus. But it's going to take some concentration and some effort on everybody's part. Conrad, have you got any
I
comment?
represent Small Business Administration, is probably the largest commercial loan portfolio in the state of Iowa right now. We loan money by guaranteed loans, bank loans, or loans to other lending institutions, and offer the backing of the United States Treasury behind it. And that kind of encourages them to put some money in there when we guarantee up to 90% of a loan proposal. I was hoping that this today might be a beginning of some of the apple growers in the area getting together and deciding if they want to do a project, and what that project would be. We might help through Jim Richardson and the Small Business Development Center to help you develop a business plan, which is really the beginning of the project, where you outline what it is you want to do, what you need to do to have in the way of financing in order to accomplish that. You have to decide what kind of equipment you want, and how big it is, and who's going to be in there, and what you're going to offer that apple grower in return. Hopefully it'll be a better price for his product, and a better market for it. Again, Dwayne, you know, I'm not an apple person, I'm a finance person. We would like to see you put something together in the way of a business plan. We can help you to an extent where we can hire a consultant, and perhaps through the Small Business Development Center, I think, Jim, you have some funds. You can select a consultant that you might want to work with to put together a business plan, which will include a finance proposal, which then we can take to a bank or an organization like Greg Sweet represents here with Iowa Business Credit Development Corporation. I asked him to come along today to observe this. That's where it begins, and I hope that we can get something going. You've got a lot of apples, and I'm impressed that you, whether the smalls over here have, I don't know how many hundreds of pounds or tons of apples to produce all in a short period of time, and they have this grater, but they can't get it all through, and I'm sure that others of you have that same problem, and I hope that maybe we could help you along to get something started in combining your problems to solve them and to get a better market for Iowa's horticultural crops.
Thank you, John. Mr. Sweet, Greg, would you like to make a few comments and give us some ideas of how we can help you or you can help us get an idea in terms of what we can put together?
Like I said, just echo what Conrad was saying about, we can look at a plan and decide what seems to be the best way to put it together, or what the financing that would seem to be available. Certainly through the SBA and us would be a reasonable place to start. I think USDA grant monies perhaps would be, I guess I envision something like a Harrison County incubator project, or whatever you want to call it. Something where the USDA, the state, even the federal government perhaps, looks at this county as, we're going to have a demonstration plot here, see if this works. The Harrison County, just simply because they are seemingly the aggressive county as far as apple growing is concerned. I believe you said it was the most in the state. Perhaps if we're going to run into opposition from other states, other counties, or what have you, that they're getting, you'll be getting special privileges here maybe. But I think certainly in Iowa, no one has to be grabbed by the collar and say, corn and beans aren't making it anymore. We have a large contingent of people in this state that need to see the farmers do better. And we certainly have land. We have some of the best land in the world. Harrison County may have some of the best land for apples that there is in the world. In my estimation, the biggest hurdle, I don't think the biggest hurdle is even money. I think the biggest hurdle is market. I was talking to several people, I guess I don't remember who was saying this, but that perhaps one of the most difficult thing is going to be to band independent fruit growers together to do anything together as a cooperative unit. We've never ever seen farmers in this state do anything else similar to that. They're just independent operators, and that sort of thing is going to have to change. It's going to have to be a cooperative effort. Financially, there's no other way to do it than through some cooperative sort of situation. Perhaps with the initial upfront money on some of the fixed assets, certainly not the growing facility. I think the land is the easiest thing to find here. Maybe the central processing facility, central bookkeeping services would be all provided at the same place. Perhaps a grower would would have dues or something to the cooperation or the cooperative. The cooperative supplies in turn a ready outlet for the apples and maybe perhaps the biggest machinery, the machinery that costs the most, that certainly the grading and the cleaning and what have you. But I still see that the biggest hurdle initially is going to be the market. We've got to establish how are we going to sell these apples. It's clear you can produce them, and it's clear that if we had a facility that perhaps in Harrison County, somewhere in the central of Harrison County or wherever, that it could have enough people provide enough apples and so forth to get that going. But we still are going to have to identify something that is yet to be identified, I think, and that is that we can sell all we can make, or at least sufficiently. And then I guess there are some other things that need to be identified too, and that's how do we handle that first 5 years? What do we do? I'm talking especially now in terms of new people wanting to get into this that don't have other operations that they can draw from in the meantime. But I would hope that ISU, USDA, Ag people are going to be the source of perhaps the marketing expertise that it's really going to have.
Very well said. Appreciate that very much. Clayton, I know you've come a long way, and I've read with interest your interest in this. Come all the way from Iowa City, from the University of Iowa. Would you like to talk to us a little bit about your personal interest and some of your vision of what can happen in this area?
Professionally, I'm not really into apples, but professionally, I'm into Iowa. I really believe in Iowa. I think we've got a lot going for us in Iowa, and I think we down four-mile ourselves too much in this state, and I think there are a lot of things we can do. That's why I happen to be into talking about the apple thing. And I would say many of the ideas that I've had for 10 or 15 years have been expressed here today. But I'd like to throw out a few things I call short range and long range. We're really talking kind of long range here, basically. But just a few ideas. And when I say a few ideas, maybe a couple of them might be worth something. You never know. But one thing, I thought of Gays Mills, Wisconsin. How many of you have been up to Gays Mills? When I was riding the ridges there, I thought about Gays Mills. Gays Mills might be a place you might want to check out. And the thing that my next thought from Gays Mills was, that's a tremendous tourist area. You can set up another business connected. I think it's long range, I'm thinking. But you've got resources here that can set up a kind of a tourist element of all this. When you bring the tourists in, they buy the apples too. It's a one or the other kind of thing. And I think it's a real possibility because of the uniqueness of this area. You've got that. I don't know if you've had the governor out yet in this area during the apple season, have you? If you haven't, I would advise get up and get after him right now. Tell him to get out here this fall.
Help us, Clay. We're trying to get him this summer, early fall. The schedule's tough.
Oh, we got enough people around here. We can.
I know we're trying.
We've asked.
I know Bob Lounsbury would come anytime.
Don't ask, just walk in and get him by the hand and say, come on out here. Sometimes you have to do things a little different with them. And kind of coincidentally, kind of humorously too, the former governor, Bob Ray, I've been interested in Billy in this for years, his wife, so she's interested. Get her out here. She'd come out and see them. And you know, every little bit helps. And Paul Comer, who's the head of the tourist in the Development Commission, get Paul out here. Paul would think tourism for this area. I mean, he's an idea kind of guy. I thought of a slogan, but I think I'll wait for that for last. One broad thing, we have to educate housewives. I've talked to several of you about that, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but housewives don't know apples. We haven't really made an attempt in this country to really have housewives know apples. They think an apple's an apple. And we need to get them over that hurdle, and they'll buy a lot more apples if they understand what's what. I think we need earlier apples for the marketing thing. I think we ought to do everything we can to look for earlier types of apples. I think something we're talking about here relates to the family farm. And I think sometimes in Iowa we talk out of both sides of our mouth. I think the family farm indicates more work. I'll just let that go there. I guess my final thing is just to give you a little slogan, which isn't meant to be taken seriously, but things always pop in my mind. You could either call this the Garden of Eden out here, or the Apple Garden of Eden, in lusty Harrison County. I don't know how you spell lusty.
I wonder, Mr. Caldwell, you got anything you'd like to add to this, or any ideas or suggestions? We picked this man up here at noon, and he didn't get to go on our tour, but I'm sure he's familiar with where we've been, so we don't have to tell him anything about that.
I appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't make it. I depend on getting a lot of my information from Gary Googie and Hugh Conlon, who I interface with a lot. And I never like to follow Clayton, that's for sure. This is an educational experience for me. You know, my experience with producers working together, and it's limited, Dwayne, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but historically, producers haven't worked together very well. And it seems to me farmers have that independent spirit, and they're going to do everything by themselves, and I'm not unfamiliar with that. You know, the old saying, the sum of all the parts equals the whole, or however that went. The sum of all the parts really equal more than the whole if you look at it cooperatively. And I'm going to ask you a question, Kit. Is there a Harrison County Apple Producers Association of some kind?
Not at this point.
There isn't. It seems to me that's one step you ought to take, and I'm sure you've thought of that. I know you have.
The people here that date back further than I do, there might have been at one time.
There was at one time.
Yeah.
It was loose, but we did have an association, and independent growers kind of goes the wayside.
I like that sound, the Harrison County Apple Growers Association, because that's what it's going to take to sell a regional concept of production.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that has to be one of your earliest steps. And I've worked a little bit, and I know some of the Iowa Development Commission people have, and Clayton have too, and with some, I don't know if you want to call them Chamber of Commerces, but let me call it in Southwest Iowa, the typical Chamber of Commerce, and how they want to work together. Oh, they all want to work together until the first industrial prospect comes along. Well, I tell you, for some reason then it starts falling apart in a hurry, you know. Now, I don't know how you would get your association. I know it's easy for you maybe to say, we've got to work together and get together, and we really want to do it. But then when the going gets real tough, or when the first real problem comes, you know, can you still hang in there at that time? I think that's the test. Listen, I really don't have much expertise in this, but I know from Extension's point of view, from Iowa State University's point of view, we really want you to be successful, and we want to do whatever we can do to help.
Appreciate it. And I appreciate your comment too, that relates to the commitment. When we do make a commitment, this may be nothing new for all of us. It's going to be new for all of us. We're really going to have to know what that word means, because we're looking at a long-range project. Anything that we start now is going to mature after I'm retired. We're not going to see the true impact of it until after Russ and I and Jerry have all gone and got us a cabin on a lake, because it's a future, and then Monty won't be too far behind us. He'll be coming right along. But we have to think about what we're doing in terms of this long range, and that's why it's going to take a lot of commitment, a lot of endurance. It's going to take a lot of expertise, not only particularly in the marketing area, and also in the production area. And I might mention that we're fortunate enough to have in here Dr. DeMoto and Dr. Spears, which we haven't had all that many years ago. I don't. How long have you been here, Paul?
10.
10. Are you that long?
Yeah.
Dr. Spears, we just got this last year, basically to work with existing growers and fruit growers in the state of Iowa to help them with the production. And we're really glad to get him. We want to keep him. We want to keep the funding coming to keep him and get more people like him. So that's another area of commitment that we're going to have to make.
One of the things I think you need to mention, Dwayne, is when you start talking about marketing, it's such a broad concept or a broad term.
because it's just like talking to legislators. I think every one of you need to talk to your legislators, both locally and on a national level, to let them know what you want and what you need. Because it doesn't do me any good to go over on the Hill and talk to Iowa legislators if there's not that commitment back at the local level. And to market your ideas with those people is extremely important. And I would encourage everybody to do that, because that's where a lot of those, when it comes down to it, we were fortunate enough 2 years ago to get funding enough for a position at the university, which Carlos now holds, and one in the Department of Agriculture, and that was an uphill battle. And if we want to look at agricultural diversification in the long range, we're going to have a continued commitment by the Iowa legislature, and that's not going to occur unless on the local level you push those legislators into that position, because most of them have so much going on during the session that they don't have time to sit down and analyze in a long-term way what we need.
Mr. Foley, I know you've had some interest in this, and you've got some background in terms of being, I think, with some other groups that have some interest in this, and we'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, I think I might start off just explain the Golden Hills RC&D a little bit. I think the organization may provide you, well, some strength, I guess, may be one way of putting it. It's an organization of the soil conservation districts and the county boards of supervisors in an 8-county area here in southwest Iowa. I think right there is, that gives you a base to work with. The second point is that they have a long-range plan, and within that, one of the things that they're interested in is to develop alternative crops in this area besides the corn and soybeans. So this fits right in with what they would like to see happen. And we have worked with a group of farmers here in the southwest Iowa and helped them organize an association of hay growers. They're working to develop markets for alfalfa hay primarily is what they're looking at right now. Can't say that we've been tremendously successful at this point, but there is the base group there that's organized and working. And I think, like Wayne mentioned, you're going to need a base group that is serious about it, because when things initially started off with the hay growers, they had 57 members, took off real good it looked like, and now they've got more of a core group of about 27. So you're going to take off real good, I expect, and then you'll need a group to fall back on. And I guess one question I might just ask you, and that would be, do you want to restrict it just to Harrison County, or would you want to consider a larger area? It really complicates it when you go larger, but you may want to look at what you need as far as the volume for marketing, and to be able to have a volume to get in there and compete, you may want to try to pick up, say, like the growers at Council Bluffs, or some at Glenwood, some at Hamburg, and these are some of the things you're going to need to look at. And I think I'd be safe in saying that the executive board would be interested in working with you and assisting you in the organizational aspects, and then trying to seek out help with some of the things that we can do. And you've done very well getting together a group of help here today. That's a good start. And just might mention that here in Harrison County, that Tom Hoff, one of the growers up there, is an executive board member of the RC&D, so you have kind of an inside track there. I guess that's basically what I have said.
Appreciate it. I think your point's well taken in that you do anything in terms of a centralized packing facility, and we're going to need all immediately. We're going to need all the assets we can get our hands on. And I think Russ mentioned here at lunchtime that his ideas and concepts of what he thinks could happen, and relating that he feels that we need to get these apples and get them through a processing plant, wax them, get them in the marketplace, that we can move a lot of apples and a lot of byproducts. And I'm sure Jerry and Monty and Jim over there agrees with it, that we've got to utilize all the apples we can get our hands on, because at first we're not going to have enough. We've got to have an economic flow through that facility. And to invite some outsiders in until you get stronger and then ignore them is wrong. We're talking about Iowa. You know, we can make this the center, because this is where the strength has been. This is where we have the best opportunity to build the market center and go from there. Okay, Doug.
Mark, Dave,
Okay, Mark, Dave, or Katie, you got any comments or things you'd like to add to this?
I'm not sure what I can add at this point to it. We have been looking into the markets in Minneapolis and St. Paul and Chicago and Kansas City. We still have St. Louis to look at. We've been looking at apples and asking them, what they're looking for in terms of those. But we've also been looking at a lot of the other fruits and vegetables. Hopefully what we've been covering is about 90% of what people consume. And we may find out in the end which ones we can compete in and which ones we can't. It looks like in terms of apples, we're probably have a hard time beating Washington, which everybody's trying to say that they want to move out of the market. You might be looking more to move out Missouri or move out Michigan, because it sounded like when we were talking to retailers that they're looking at Washington as their mainstay for 50% during that fall market. But then they bring in the apple deals from Missouri and then move into Michigan. And so as to when your market comes on, I don't know who you're really displacing here, but you'd be looking at who you're going to be displacing in that term. And then maybe if you're looking at it further, it might be that when you get into your waxing facilities and things like that, you might be able to start working on Washington. But they're not looking at the local apple deal as being anything that can displace Washington from half of that market in the fall. Other than that, we'll probably have something available by December, hopefully, on what we're doing, so that we'll have a little better idea. I hate to tell you a whole lot about what we're doing because we haven't summarized our results yet.
Okay, Jim, if you got any comments you want to make?
A couple of comments. One was the comments about the organizing under stress. I'm young enough to remember my father being called by other farmers who were in a stressful situation in 1932, 33, and they went to another community where they had an area they were marketing dairy products cooperatively. And they learned about this co-op by farmers from Lucas County, where I was born and raised, went to this other place where they had this co-op, and they started gathering the milk together and processing it in a cooperative creamery in Sheraton, Iowa, and they shipped it because they were together as a group in volume in carload lots to New York City, and more than double the price they got for the butterfat. And I think you're talking about the same thing here. And Conrad probably has seen my budget, so he does know I do have no money, and I can help write a proposal. But I want you people to write something practical, something that will work. I want you to go study it, and you come back, I'll help you put it together, and I can help with it financially at that point in time. But I really want it to be practical. I want you to look at it and see what's been done. I want you to be sure that you're together on it, because I'm held accountable for all these projects that are written with that money, and I want a high percent of them successful.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, Keith? Okay. All right. How about Paul or Carlos? We heard from you a little bit this morning, but if you got anything you want to sum up, Carlos, in terms of what do you think about Harrison County, Western Iowa fruit?
I guess what I'd like to do is I work the entire state with the commercial fruit growers, and I started in October, and the first few months I was on the job, I spent most of the time visiting the apple growers. So I got around to visit most of them, and several things struck me at the time, and I'll share those with you in just a minute. Just to put things in perspective, we have about at least 60 to maybe 70 apple growers, commercial ones in the state. There are probably some that I don't know about. Those orchards range anywhere from size an acre up to 100 acres, and we're soon going to have a 200-acre orchard, I think. The apple orchards tend to be concentrated in this area, south of Des Moines and in the eastern part of the state. And then we have quite a few orchards that are scattered around. As far as the other crops, we have probably 60, 70 people growing strawberries, almost all for pick your own or direct marketing. And they're scattered all over the state as well. Most of those acreages are much smaller, although we have one person who has about 60 acres of strawberries scattered over about 4 farms. Some of the things that struck me when I came back was the first thing, I guess, was the quality of the young orchards going in the state. And as a pomologist point of view, they're being very well trained and cared for. And I'm very optimistic we're going to have some good production from these new orchards. I used to buy fruit for Gerber baby food in about 4 states. So I looked at a lot of orchards and looked at tons and tons of fruit. One of the other things that struck me when I came back was the quality of Iowa fruit. It can be very well grown here, and it's as good as in some of our surrounding states. One other thing I guess I became aware of was, in some respects, how little we produce in the state. Our 5-year average up to 83 was about 264 million pounds, or 1,000 pounds a year. Last year it was 147,000 or something like that. But if we look at Minnesota, which is to the north of us and experiences much more extreme winter weather, they produce about 510,000, approximately twice as much as we do. If we look at Wisconsin or Missouri, they produce over 1 million bushels, about 1,300,000. So I think we have room for more production, and we should not look at our climate as prohibiting that always. I think we have a tendency to do that. We're all familiar with the Armistice Day freeze in 1940, which killed a lot of trees in the state. Some of you were around and can attest to that fact. And some of those orchards were replanted in 1941, and those are a lot of the orchards that we're living with now, the older orchards. And those trees are still productive for a lot of orchardists, and they tell me they're not ready to pull those out because they're still producing much fruit. But since 1941, we haven't had that kind of disaster again. We did have a light crop last year. Finally, I guess when you talk about setting up a cooperative venture of some sort with a number of growers, there are examples of this in the fruit industry. Just down at Wathena, Kansas, across from St. Joe, there's a cooperative packing plant where several growers are involved in that. And parts of the Washington industry also were based on cooperative efforts among apple growers. So there are some good models for that kind of thing. I think that's all I have to say. I'd be glad to answer any questions now or later.
Well, I'm going to turn around and ask a few questions to fruit growers. One, what did you get for your apples on a normal year? What do you expect per box? $10? $12? $50? In a normal crop year, last year was unusual since there wasn't a crop.
We'd like to get $10.
Okay. Yeah, I know. But you go to Minneapolis in Minnesota and they'll get $24, $25. Okay? Now I'm going to ask another question. How many of you can have facilities to store half your crop? 25%? No. And this is half the problem.
One load.
This is the problem in the state, is the lack of storage facilities. Okay? And of course, and really we're talking market. I think we should say competitive advantage in the market. Okay? Rather than, because the market's there. Some of you tap it to some extent. But you they could only take so much because you could only supply quality for so long. And so really, with, if we're talking cooperative marketing, I think we're talking packing, we're talking the additional, the storage of those fruit. And, in Washington, of course, they could offer us a product year round. Now, I don't say that we're going to be able to do that in Iowa, but maybe we could extend that out into May, as does Michigan. I think I'll leave it at that.
Appreciate it. Good one. Russ, you want to make any comments?
No, not really.
As a grower?
What Paul says about our storage is, I feel we rate just better quality apples in Washington. Everybody's been talking Washington apples. And the consumers know it, but like Paul says, we only have a good quality apple for 2 months. And then it starts to deteriorate because of even with our cold storages, the one apples we do get in them are just not a CA storage, and they're not that good at cold storage, and the apples start going downhill. So everybody mostly buys their apples from us, and take them home and try to store them themselves. Well, you know what happens there. They eat half of them, they lose half of them, and the middle half that they eat isn't good quality by then. And so they go to the store and buy some Washington apples that are hard and not near as flavorful as ours. I do feel that we don't have to, as Mark brought up, I don't think we're worried about the Minneapolis or St. Louis or Kansas City market. We can sell all our apples in Iowa. I think even right here in southwest Iowa, Sioux City and Omaha, and the surrounding area of Western Iowa with the fairways and the Food for Less and all them can easily handle our apples. But we do need a centralized storage and packing. Uniformity of pack is probably the one thing that you run into between independent apple growers. We don't all pack alike. One guy's number one isn't the other guy's number one. And the storekeeper don't know which one he's getting. And of course they play one against the other. $1 to them, to the produce buyer is $1, and he may not even look at the apple. So if you had a centralized market with a local, we've been talking Harrison County, once you get that, get the storekeeper confidence in that pack, I don't think we'd have any trouble selling our apples. The apple will sell itself.
Good. Jerry, anything you want to say?
I think on the other hand, along here, okay, you're talking about the own apples, then we got our off-grade apples, like you and I, we got some hail. I think it's fresh apple juice crate to be built up for this.
Oh, absolutely.
Get the right mix on them when you press it, and you could have a wonderful juice product that's great juice, and it's not watered down, concentrated, it's just great stuff. And as I said, the off-colored apples or ones with blemish, the juice crate up would be
Yes.
That helps, and again, that helps the market because you take that cheap market off, that cheap apple off the market, and somebody's not out there trying to sell it out of the back end of a pickup or at a farmer's market. That's what happens to your farmer's market. You got 5 qualities of apples in the same market area,
And you turn just as many dollars profit by marketing them some other way besides putting them in the marketplace. They take a lot of that out. Like you mentioned, the cider, the apple juice, the pies, the applesauce.
Somebody mentioned apple pies, man. That's unlimited now.
Yeah.
Women don't make pies anymore; they buy them.
And people don't buy apples. When we were in business years ago, people had big families. They had to store it. They buy 5, 6, maybe 10 bushel at a time. They used on them all winter, plus the canned apples. Now it's a different thing. They buy 4, 5, 6 pounds at a time. They have no place to store them. They eat fresh apples. So you're not selling big quantities to families.
Money? You got anything you want to say? Got a question back here.
How long do you have to store these apples, or how long would you need this storage facility for? And how cold do you store them?
Okay, you're going to go, depends on how many you got to market, and it's gradually going to be a thing of the future. Now, you'd be harvesting normally last August, 1st, September on through October, November. But if you had facility, you could harvest those peak the quality in the orchard rather than having to work them out, down, and whenever you can get to them. And that's a problem. Is that right?
Right, that's like I was talking
That's
this
one of
morning.
the biggest problems.
If you got bigger machinery, you pick your apples in a 2-week optimum time and at their peak and get them through and get them in the cooler, where we spread it out over 6-7 weeks because of room, our facility.
What other kind of storage facility then would utilize the same, or would be able to be utilized by an apple grower? Is there any other kind of storage? I mean, I see that the storage facility perhaps is going to be one of your biggest capital expenses.
You're talking about another crop that could be utilized.
Is there some other type of crop?
Should be explored. You see, should be explored. That facility should, maybe we need a hydro cooler in there for sweet corn.
I agree. Yeah, I think so.
Maybe we need more cherry growers. Sour cherries. Montmorency cherries will grow here.
They'll grow here, but doggone it, that's Carlos and I have been talking about that. It's a crop that we can grow. There's 2 growers in the state that grow them, but it's yet, to me, it's one I can't really get excited about because it is such a cutthroat industry.
It's feast and famine. We know that from Gays Mills, Wisconsin.
Like your vegetables.
There's all those things should be explored. This is a matter of these kind of people giving us ideas, it's a matter of looking at the economics of that thing all the way through. You bet. A facility like that should be utilized every hour it could be. But
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just don't say I can visualize peaches as being, we talked about peaches this morning, and it's not feasible in Iowa. I'll tell you that for sure. I've had one crop in 5 or 6 years. But I can have fresh peaches out of Benton Harbor, Michigan, back here at my place in one day. And if we had the coolers for them, I think we could sell through a cooperative market. We could sell peaches as fast as we could get them in here.
But basically, we're looking at as you get more and more production of apples, you're looking at from September and on further into the year as you market your fruit. Well, say like Washington, Michigan, for example, when they harvest apples, they harvest them at the peak of quality in the orchard. They're put in bulk bins, 17, 24 bulk bushel bins. They're brought right in. They go right into the cooler, and they stay in that cooler until they work up their orders. Of course, with controlled atmosphere storage, they carry those clear over there into the next season. Washington had a pretty serious freeze, as a lot of us know, this last year. They're carrying over a lot of their CA storage now till fall, so they can battle in the marketplace. The price of apples are going to go up this fall in wholesale, because Washington got hurt this last year more than they want to let us know. So this will be an unusual year. So what you hear in terms of economics this year, maybe in the wholesale market, don't pay too much attention to it, because it's going to fluctuate. Because I've had at least one call from super value chains asking if I can get the fruit growers together. They buy the whole crop this year out of Iowa. Well, I know why they said that. They're worried about Washington State, but that isn't going to happen very often. Okay. Oh yeah. Peter Lawler?
I'm right over here. I'm
Right.
just visiting.
Okay.
I went to school at Iowa State. This is always kind of interesting to me. I've been thinking about this for years. And there's people in other states that are doing this too, as far as the food production in Iowa. Most of it's imported, everybody knows, I guess, by now. There's been a lot of studies in other states that people have done this too. So they're trying to diversify with gardens and things like that. So I think it's a very good idea, and it really interests me. Makes me want to come back a little bit. I'm living in Texas now, and I think it's a good idea.
Well,
Glad to see it happen.
we like to import some young people. We're sure exporting a lot.
Yeah.
That's a shame at this point. Zell and I have been talking about it, so I'm sure you're aware of that. We're a lot of young people. It's like Jim here. He's with his dad in the fruit business. You got anything you want to say?
Not really.
So you're the one that's going to benefit by that. with twins at home and a real future ahead of you. Okay. Gary is our county extension director.
Dwayne, I hope maybe in
some small way, we've got across the uniqueness of the area here in Harrison County in Western Iowa. I'm a newcomer to this area. I've only been here 21 years. It takes a while. I do have some ties to the home farm in northern Iowa. And I spent a week and a half picking up rocks to get them out of the way so you could grow corn and some of those kind of things. And you see the dieback on the apple trees from the 10 and 15 degree colder weather. It's a warmer climate here. Those kind of things. The thing that I think that I see that's unique, and I never cease to learn, is the expertise and the nucleus of apple growers, fruit growers that we have here in Harrison County. And I think that's one of the real unique things that we have here. And I never cease to be amazed at the attitude of these people. It takes so long to get crop trees into production. And Jim, they get a hailstorm, and you hardly see their corners of their mouth go down. You know, well, they got bruised. I hate it, but by golly, next year, you know, that's really unique. And in a time when we're dealing with lots of the kinds of things that we're dealing in agriculture and depressed Iowa economy and so forth. I guess I'll share a little story. I don't know if that's time for that or not. I heard it and I thought it was pretty good. As I understand it, an attorney and a doctor and a fruit grower farmer died and went to heaven. St. Peter met him. And he said to the attorney, he said, I look here at your history. He said, I see here, you made a good income and you lived an awful good life. Had a big family. And the attorney said, yes, that's correct. He said, I have no complaints. St. Peter said, it'll cost you $50,000 to get into heaven. The attorney said, no problem. Whipped out the $50,000, paid him, went on into heaven. He come to the doctor and he said, gee, he said, you also had a good life. He said, in fact, you were a surgeon. You saved the lives of thousands of people. Educated all your children. You see here, you traveled a lot. He said, nothing really bad ever happened to you. The doctor said, boy, that's right. I have no complaints. He said, it'll cost you $100,000 to get into heaven. And he come to the fruit producer farmer and he said, oh my. He said, it's a little different story. He said, I see here you were hailed out in your 45 years of production 14 times. You were struck by drought 7 times. They embargoed your crop several times. He said, things weren't too good. The farmer, well, he said, it really wasn't that bad. You know, you fight Mother Nature. So, well, St. Peter says it's going to cost you $250,000 to get into heaven. The farmer said, where do you sign? I really hope our visitors enjoyed today, and I hope they learned something. And I'm quite sure, Dwayne, that some of us local people also learned that there's some uniqueness to Harrison County that we didn't really realize.
Okay, Bill, I'm going to turn it back to you a little bit. And
Dwayne, I just had one question.
You bet.
Comment. Could I make? You were saying I'm ready to be baptized, by the way, because you guys have got me pretty well sold. But I'm wondering, and maybe Zello's going to do this now, but I'm always concerned a little bit about a meeting like this, because I think everyone gets kind of fired up, and I think we're all believers. I wonder where does it go at this point? Is that, am I jumping?
We're not going to walk away.
You're right with me.
Am I? Okay. Okay.
I'm going to go put my robe on.
Right in.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for setting the stage, Wayne. That's certainly where we are right now. We've done some things today. Now the clock's running, right? It's still ticking, but what time is it? What are we going to do? And we saw a little bit about Harrison County today, and as Gary and many have said, the uniqueness of it. Some of the reasons why change may be in order, whether it's financially based or diversification in farming or what it might be. We need to think about it. I was born in Harrison County, but I have more than 21 years. I was born in 22. So that makes it 63 years. That's when Hitler put us on a tour. And we missed a little there and learning something about marketing. We were gone for a while. But my work is sales and marketing, and I feel that's very important, as we've kind of hinted today. We can produce very well, but perhaps we haven't learned or used other resource people enough to learn about the marketing and to do a better job. We have some people here today that are program managers, producers, financial people, facilitators, and we're together. Now, what are we going to do about that tomorrow? And when do we meet next? Who should be there? Who wants to prepare an agenda so we do this properly and work intelligently tomorrow? I think that's something we all need to have a part in. Many of you are professionals at that sort of organization. Real estate values have been, I guess, shrinking a bit. Bill Tufford, is that an honest statement?
I'd say pretty honest.
Bill's our banker. We'll get him here in a minute. But as we look at developing apples and fruits, could that be kind of a growing equity? Does that make sense? Instead of a decreasing equity? Kind of looks like it. From what I saw today, watch those trees at 2 years, 4 years, bushels of apples on those trees in formation stage. 5 years ago, that land wasn't worth much. Maybe it'll bring in $3,000 an acre, maybe more. That kind of teases you a little bit, doesn't it? It does me. Is a co-op a buzzword? Is that consideration worthy? As we were talking to Greg and some at lunch, a franchise. Wendy's were pretty successful. Godfather's Pizza, pretty successful with franchising, which in effect controlled the planning, the production, the marketing, and the resources. Controlled it. As many of you said, farmers don't like to be put under the pen. They want to run their own show, and I'm one too. You're kind of reluctant to join forces and be in somewhat of a controlled situation. Maybe we have to change that thinking. Maybe we started that today. I call this today in our Harrison County Improvement Association movement, since Wayne Carberdall and Gary Doogie helped us in the beginning of '83, I call this a part of a process. It's going to take 5 to 10 years to do it. That's what we said last year and the year before. We're a part of the process of change here. I believe that. This is my home. We got to work on that. But as I said, in January '83, Wayne Carberdall and Gary led an assessment of Harrison County, an evaluation. I forget what other things we called it. We came up with finally, in conclusion, as Wayne wrote them down at the end of that session, 3 things that those of us on the board in the Harrison County Industrial Development Group are trying to address. Those 3 things are industrial and business development. That's the number 1. That was most popular. Number 2 was leadership development. We lack community, leadership, people, and direction. We're trying to serve that. Third was improved communications and organization. That's the 3 things we're trying to serve. I want you to help us. I think today approaches that. It's part of that process. Mary Broll, she and her husband Bruce, here today, giving up their day in their retail establishment. Mary also serves on our Industrial Development Committee of Harrison County Improvement. Would you have a comment, Mary, about today?
Well, I know nothing about apples. I do know about the determination of Harrison County, and I think it's possible we'll get it done. We came up with a little logo, not anything against Clayton at all, but Harrison County is absolutely great, and we really feel that way, and we'll do anything we can to promote it. So.
Thank you very much. Gene Bloom is also on our Harrison County Industrial Development Committee and is a publisher and associated with 2 newspapers in the county. Gene, any comment?
I don't really have much to say. I don't know anything about apples either, but I do know that it's the County Industrial Development Group is that we're dedicated to helping the growers in any way we can to make this dream become a reality because we think it'll benefit the whole county.
Thank you. Jane Sutmilk is here and is on our Industrial Development Committee as well, and is with the Iowa Job Service. She tries to fit people into jobs. And as we heard Russ talk about some of his problems with employment situation, she certainly fits into that. Jane, would you have some comment?
I'm here today to clap and cheer.
Bill Whitmore is here representing the city of Woodbine, as serves on the city council, is also a retailer in the building supply and materials business. Bill?
It's a great meeting, and I've seen things happening, and of course I'm interested from the community standpoint of growth in Woodbine and putting people to work and so forth, and I think we're on the right track. It's been a great day. I enjoy this, and I look for things to happen.
Bill Tufford is with us in Woodbine now in recent months, and is with the Iowa Savings Bank, and he's the man that we talk to dollars and he gives us the cents. Bill, would you have a comment?
I've got about 3 pages of notes that they're just reactions that I've acquired. Some of them are from a business standpoint, some of them from a banking standpoint, which sometimes there's a difference. Some of them from a consumer standpoint. And I guess from a banker standpoint, an agricultural banker standpoint, I would have to somewhat disagree with Dwayne's assessment that this might be the answer to the distressed farmer. I think he can't wait 5 years, but it may be the answer to keep farming from becoming distressed in Woodbine County down the road. We've all talked cycles, and we've all lived through cycles. If there's anything new about life, is that history repeats itself. It could be the solution. I agree with your assessment on the land. The farm that we saw that you needed mountain goats to pick up the windfalls. That land, without apple trees on it, you couldn't sell.
Couldn't give it away.
It's probably, I know of land in this area for sale at $300 and $400 an acre. They won't sell. Put 7-year stand of apple trees on it, and what's it worth? What's an acre of land with 200 trees on it worth versus an acre of land with weeds and grass that can't be even grazed? I don't know the value. So from a business standpoint, talked with a couple of the growers, and $5 a tree, $15 a tree from the day you put it in the ground till you probably get that first small crop of apples off of it. For a 10-acre plot, that's not a whole lot of money invested. It's not a whole lot of money from the banker to invest in a concept. Contrary to some of the negative aspects of banking over the last few years, bankers are still looking for opportunity and looking for borrowers that are looking for opportunity. There is opportunity capital available, but you have to show them that it will work. I guess that's where I'm coming away from this meeting. I can see where it will work. I don't know where the cart and where the horse is. You need to band together and develop a processing plant for your apples and your raw materials, and then go out and get some growers. You need to go out and get your growers and say, hey, it's going to take you 5 years to produce an apple. In 5 years, we're going to have this plant. As I said, this is, I'm not sure which comes first. And we've got all of the government agencies that we need right here today, the SBA. You've got the Development Commission. All of these people have input. As I indicated to Dwayne through sign language. Coincidentally, my people own the bank in Gaines Mills. I'd be glad to act as any kind of liaison between the two communities. Those are just some of my, they say off the top of my head, impressions.
We've heard someone suggest the governor be advised of what we're appraised of what we're doing here. I think that's an excellent idea, Clayton. We're thinking about something like that. But again, we're meeting today. We're going to end now. We've completed our agenda, in my view, and we'll continue for a few moments here. But what do we do? As Wayne pointed out, what do we do now? What day do you want to meet again? Who has the agenda?
Well, I know, just from checking around, I know that
we're gonna have to lean on Dan Cooper, his office, to give us help. He's willing to do that. We're certainly gonna need the input of the fruit growers. I've talked to some of the fruit growers here, and they're willing to meet again to discuss this in detail and devise a plan of approach. I know that Conrad will meet again. I know that Doug will meet again. I'm sure that Clayton will make inputs. I don't think there's anybody in here that wouldn't want to lend their support at this time. But we really need, and we're open for suggestions now from any of you, who and when should we get together?
I think as the other gentleman mentioned earlier, I think the key to it right now is get an expression from the fruit growers that they want to do something and that they're behind it. And I think that you need to develop a Harrison County Fruit or Apple Growers Association, call a meeting and see who comes. And that's the first expression. If nobody comes or 2 or 3 come, why, you might as well forget it.
We can handle that.
What about that?
Get them all here.
There are what, 12 or 13?
There's 12 or 13 of them in this county.
Who would
The county has a grower or two, Brickyard might come over, right? They might do it.
who would sort of raise their hand and say, I will approach that? Someone like to do that?
I nominate Dwayne.
I can bring them
Is
together.
there a second to that?
I'll bring them together for that purpose, you bet. And we can do that as soon as it's possible. Get the guys together.
One thing Dwayne and I have talked about, and Gary, is that we'd like to be sure we have your name, telephone number, and address. If we have a question that's asked tomorrow, and it happens to be your area, well, how do we get a hold of it? Let's don't lose that today. If you could give us, Cheryl and Mary and some of us will be here to take your card or your phone number and address so that we be sure we know how to contact you. Doug will help us do that, I'm sure, and so we'd be at different tables, but all of you leave us the information so we can contact you, and if you want any of us, Bill Tufford's in the bank, Mary and her husband have a place on Main Street of Grove, and many of us could be contacted by just getting a hold of Woodbine. Doug has all of our names and addresses pretty much at the Development Commission. Okay?
That's step 1, Connor. We can do that. Now, what's step 2? We come back with some kind of an answer, right?
Okay. Step 2 is if they get together and decide that they want to go into a cooling, what you call a grading or cooling operation, or a mill to make cider or whatever, they want to join together. I think at that point we want to get Jim Richardson in there with the Small Business Development Center, and he can study it, or he can hire a private contractor and pay him money to come in and work with you folks to develop a business plan. And then you got to decide how many people are going to put apples in this thing the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, 10th year. How you expand the operation to meet the growing demand, and how each grower can plan on the ability of that plant to receive their apples. What kind of arrangement you have with the grower, what he gets back, what his incentives are to go in 100% in this thing to make it work. And I think that's all part of the business plan of operation. And included in one part of that is a finance plan. How you're going to finance that, and then you bring you should have your banker in there with this, and some of the rest of us to help develop how you're going to finance.
We're going to need an engineering study too on the facility. What it's going to take.
That could be included, but that,
yeah. Right. And part of that will be a marketing study.
Exactly.
And plan approved. Next will be a production plan, how you're going to coordinate and bring it all together. And under that umbrella, or above that, will be the financing plan, the total overall picture. And I agree, we'll need that. So if we get together and we decide that that's what we want to go, if we come to Jim, that'll be step 2. And through him, we've got resources and avenues to the rest of you people to carry this thing on. Is that right?
Right. Wayne, one comment. I guess I was just thinking about turning somebody else's adversity into our advantage. We've talked a lot about marketing and getting our product in front of the public. You also mentioned that Super Value came to you and liked by the whole state of Iowa. Short term, but maybe this is our opportunity. Put on a statewide campaign. These are Iowa apples. If we can get them, maybe you can lock in a futures contract with this. Say, hey, if these apples grow, we don't want you going back to Washington next year. Might be something you can push immediately.
We're going to have more than an average amount.
We're going to have a good year and take advantage of their bid.
One of the areas that have, I guess, the offices that has a lot of information. Wayne Carberdall's, ISU and Council Bluffs, and Gary and Logan have a lot of addresses of resource people. And we certainly lean on you very much to help us continue now. I guess we kind of feel like maybe we have that right to lean on you a little bit. So if that's okay with you, we'll probably do that.
We've been leaned on before.
Okay. Number 3. What next? Anyone?
I think number 3 is when we get to this stage where we're doing a study, then everybody's going to know what the study's at. That's what the results are.
Wait.
It seemed to me just an idea, but as I was thinking about it, and boy, I could really be wrong on this. It seems to me your step number 2 in my mind is really step number 3. It seems to me there might be one step in between. I was thinking if you got your own folks together, some kind of agreement on that. Now, you all want to meet yourself, meet you, everybody, you don't need more meetings than necessary, you know, but you might want to appoint within your group who's going to serve, and maybe step 2 is really to visit. I was thinking with Dick, I don't want to put Dick on the spot, but I was thinking about that hay growers association. Maybe you've got a model of some kind there. There may be some other model where your first step is to get your own house in order. Your second step might be to get someone from the Iowa Development Commission, extend the right people as a sort of a committee. And the right people on that you need to draw on when you need them. And obviously one of those people is going to be where you go to get that financial plan. That was just another idea.
We're not going to be bashful about coming to anybody in here for help.
We'll lean on Doug too.
Do that. And we'll do that as soon as we, because this resource sheet of knowing who we got here and what they have to offer in terms of talent and resources is really vital to us.
See, I don't know if it would make sense, or if the hay growers people, if you had articles of incorporation drawn up, or if you had bylaws, constitution, all that, or if that's too much to do, or if you think that's necessary.
I think it might be in the initial stages, because I think it takes a commitment in terms of interest first to initiate the study to see what kind of feasibility we can bring out of it.
But I guess one of the things, that your group might want to decide is, do you really want to go into Shelby County? Do you want to go up into Iowa? Do you want to include Potawatomi County too? Or are you just talking Harrison County, or where? I know I'm a little confused about how you would do that, but there are people who know how to do that.
I don't think we'll have any trouble making that decision.
No, okay.
No problem. I think we know what we're going to do.
And finishing up, any other comments from anyone? If not, on behalf of the Harrison County Improvement Association and our board, I want to thank you all for coming and giving us your time and your expertise. And thank you especially for your comments. I think we're on the way. We have the engine started, but as I say, I think we have to buy some fuel and keep it running. We'll ask you to help us. And so whatever way you can. We're beginning. It's part of the process. And we'll stumble along the way, I'm sure. But do help us. We have strong need for change, it appears. And very good idea has been expressed. So if nothing more, we'd like to again have your names, phone numbers, and addresses before you leave. And any other comments you have, we'll break up formally now and continue informally as long as it wish to stay. Thank you so much.